Good morning, everybody. My name is Larry Jacobs, and welcome to a very interesting show we're going to have today on the 7th of September, 2023. It's a pleasure to have you here today. I've got Dr. Mark WINDSCHITL here. And Mark, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly, but Mark is a professor of science teaching and learning at the University of Washington. So I'm 3 hours ahead of you if you want to know the news before it happens, Mark, okay, here in Maine, okay? You wrote a great book called Teaching Climate Change from Harvard Education Press. And I love the title, the subtitle, Fostering Understanding, Resilience, and a Commitment to Justice. All that under Teaching Climate Change. We're the American Consortium for Equity in Education. We are the voice of that here at Education Talk Radio. That's why I was thrilled to learn about the book and invite Mark on, and he was able to get on today despite a busy schedule. So we really appreciate that. We're going to archive the show over at ace-ed.org. And everything we do over there at ace-ed.org at our home website for American Consortium for Equity in Education is free. Go over there, check it out, our Excellence in Equity Awards, which, of course, anybody can check out over there. Nominate yourself, your colleagues, your school, et cetera, companies you work with, whatever the case may be. All right, go over there. Please participate. We do get an awful lot of nominees coming in. We love it, and we have our judges, literally we do, standing by. Okay, all of our podcasts are over there, and also our magazine, which is an online journal called Equity and Access. Everything's right there. Everything's free for you over at ace-ed.org. And I'm going to connect up on the other side of the country. Mark, it's Larry here. How you doing?
Hi, Larry. I'm doing very well, and you're right. It's the coffee hour here in Seattle, but I'm happy to be here with you.
Do you want to know any news that hasn't happened yet there because 3 hours later here? No?
Well, yeah. I would love to be able to predict the future, and that's kind of in line with the climate change theme.
That's what we
do
today. Here. That's why we live here in Maine, so we can protect the future for the rest of the country. Okay, that's exactly right. No wonder you're a professor. I love it. It's great stuff. Hey, Mark, did I pronounce your last name right? Is it WINDSCHITL? Help me.
WINDSCHITL.
WINDSCHITL. Thank you very much. I got to ask. I love doing this. Is that Dutch? What is that? WINDSCHITL.
Oh, that's German. German, Austrian.
German.
Yeah.
And does it mean something if you translate it out?
I think some of my family did a background search, and it means something like wind in the woods. Not quite sure.
Oh, there you go. Okay. I always find that interesting when you see an unusual name like that, and then you can go back and kind of trace what it means. Sometimes you can figure out family history and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so I just was curious. Okay, the book, Mark. By the way, how long have you been at the University of Washington? You husky, you.
Well, I've been out here in Seattle at the university for 27 years, and relevant to the book, I've had this life as an academic researcher and someone who prepares teachers for teaching and also for leadership. But I also previously was a K-12 teacher myself back in the Midwest for 13 years, and that has always helped me write for a education audience in ways that I think are a little bit more authentic than had I not been a teacher myself.
Mark, are you there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, I wish I was. What happened, all of a sudden my phone line just went dead. I don't know what happened. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize for that, everybody. It was a blank of about 30 seconds there. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, boom, it just disconnected for some reason. Welcome to life in Maine. Who knows why it happened. Okay, so we're back on. Go back again. Talk about your life in K-12 and what you're doing there, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I was just saying that I had been here at the University of Washington for 27 years as an academic researcher. And
yep.
You heard that part. Okay.
I heard that part.
Here's the part you may not have heard that before that I had a career as a K-12 science teacher. And so that has always helped me write for an educational audience, since I know what the life of a teacher is like.
Right, and that is excellent, and I hope you tell your kids, that your students that you're teaching every day, what the life of a teacher is like. And I have to ask you this, I just because you are a professor of science teaching and learning, okay, I'm always concerned, and everyone is concerned, and you are concerned that fewer and fewer people are getting involved in education. Okay, there's not enough people looking to it as a profession. And I'm curious, how are we doing, before we get into your book, how are we doing, all right, at the University of Washington, as just an example, since you're there, do we find a nice cohort of new students? What's going on? Mark?
Yeah, I think at the University of Washington, we have a high-quality program, and people know it.
I know you do.
So, yeah, we have great people coming into the profession, and they inspire us as teacher educators ourselves, so it goes both ways. Now, I would say about the teacher shortage nationwide, one of our premier education policy scholars, Linda Darling-Hammond from Stanford, always says that there are teacher shortages, but they are in different places in the United States. It's not uniformly problematic across the whole country. Now, I don't want to gloss over the fact that teachers are working in under-resourced schools, and they often get disempowered by local policy, and all the pressure that teachers are under with things like book bans and, individual parents coming in and saying, I do not want you to teach about this, that, or the other thing. So there are challenges to teaching, and people coming into the profession know about that, but they're still coming in, especially into the high-quality preparation programs.
Thank you very much. That was good, and I just hope that continues. And I'm always trying to check in when I can see somebody talk to somebody that's down in the trenches. For goodness sakes, you wrote the book. Thank you for that. And I think the book is important. Even it's a good segue. Your book is called Teaching Climate Change, and climate change is something fairly new. Let's put it that way. Okay, we've known about it for years, but now that we're really seeing it this summer everywhere. Okay, and people are feeling it. It's just been a crazy summer weather-wise, et cetera, et cetera. Well, suddenly it's affecting people, and it's really affecting people quite deeply. Okay, and the time has come, okay, to look at climate change as part of education, because our goal is to create people of the future who are going to work in the jobs that we all need to create a better society. All right? You wrote this book, and I'm just going to use the subtitle, Fostering Understanding, Resilience, and a Commitment to Justice. I love that because we're the Consortium for Equity in Education. And by the way, Mark, you're always welcome to write for us if you want. Let's just stay in touch on that. If you want to, we will offer you a forum to do whatever you want to do for our magazine and website. Okay? But talk about the need for teaching climate change now. And to me, Mark, it matters even for teacher retention. All right, we've got to excite teachers with new and exciting things and methods and pedagogies to teach. That keeps people alive and in their profession. And I just think what you're writing here is really, really important on so many levels. So I'll just ask the easy question. Why'd you write the book? What did you say?
Well, let me talk about your most recent comment about teachers always want to teach stuff that's engaging. And you're absolutely right. Climate change is front of mind for most people who actually keep up with the news, or live in the news on Earth, or living on Earth. That's another good criteria. If they live on Earth, they better be concerned. Yeah. You mentioned how people are feeling it this year with the heat waves and the hurricanes and the drought, right, and the floods. I mean, it's all happening. It's like that movie, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Yeah.
That is going to be what's happening for the next 1,000 years unless we take action fast. And the we includes teachers, because the teachers are what we call these quote-unquote trusted messengers of climate change ideas to kids. And one of the reasons I wrote the book was I knew what the role of educators were, and it's a substantial role in shifting social norms towards accepting climate change, accepting the consequences if we don't act, but also having a high a high level of climate literacy among the general population, people who understand the basics and understand that it's more than just the greenhouse effect. It's kind of problematic that it's called climate change for teachers, because a bunch of teachers sitting around in a high school department meeting might think, well, just our earth science teacher should address climate change because they're going to talk about the greenhouse effect, the carbon cycle, and that's about it. But climate change is way more than that. It involves the air we breathe. It involves the water we drink. It involves disease spreading around the world. But it also involves hope and joy and resilience. It involves the arts, and it involves storytelling from language arts, and certainly involves mathematics. It involves every teacher around that table. And when they find that out, they know that they're going to be teaching something authentic and engaging to kids. Now, notwithstanding the fact that it's going to be a little problematic in that kids are going to be, they have climate anxiety, a lot of them. And so you have to you have to add something to your pedagogical repertoire. You have to add the ability to talk with kids on an emotional level about how they're coping with climate change.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that. As you well know, okay, social emotional learning, SAL, is incredibly important these days. It's one of the top things that most educators are concerned about, certainly school districts, et cetera. And you brought up the thing, this fear of climate, okay, a climate anxiety, and, quote, you also called it an eco grief, all right? And teachers have that. We're scared, and so are kids. Okay, they see this stuff. I mean, you look at what happened in Greece Greece and Turkey. Okay, wildfires and then floods. I mean, it's like biblical plagues, for goodness sake. Okay, and these people didn't do anything. All right, and it's really quite scary. Okay, what's going on? And I want to get back to that term, climate anxiety, eco grief. Have you? I mean, you wrote it here, but is that something that's really out there? I really haven't heard those terms before. And with kids, I had no idea this was something. I mean, I could see where it would cause it, but I had no idea it actually was happening.
Yeah. Well, I would say if your listeners take away one thing from our conversation this morning, it probably should not be how wonderful my book is, but it should be that we have to take climate anxiety by our children very seriously. And I just want to underline that. There was a recent study done of 10,000 kids around the world. This includes the U.S., Europe, Australia, the Philippines. 10,000 kids and young adults, and about 70% said the future is frightening to them. And other data in that survey indicate clearly that children have anxiety about specifically not just the future in general, but about the future with regard to the climate and how they're going to live in the world in the future. And so you're right about there's kind of two issues. One is climate anxiety, which is forward-looking into the future, anticipating what's going to happen. And then there's eco-grief, which is a backwards-looking sentiment in which you have some despair or sadness about what's already been lost. Parts of our ecosystem, and I'm just talking right now about the kids in general, but children of color, more so than white kids, are aware of climate change, are concerned about it, and actually are involved in activism. Our indigenous brothers and sisters, their children have been, as their parents were, disenfranchised from the land that connected them to every living thing.
Absolutely.
And so it is a problem of social justice for sure. No,
it really is. I have to ask you, how is it manifesting itself? This is very interesting, and I want to teaching climate change, a commitment to justice. We're talking about social justice. How do you see it manifesting? I'm going to use what you used, African American kids. That to me was a very, very interesting point. Okay, talk about that.
Well,
that's really something.
Yeah, I think that folks like me, and I'm Caucasian male. I was not aware, a few years ago, I was just not aware of the environmental activism that was started way back in the 1970s by a woman named Hazel Johnson in Chicago, trying to figure out why black communities there were always situated around toxic chemical plants and landfills. And so she started the environmental activism movement, environmental justice movement, and not a lot of white people are aware of that. Those communities have been studying things like damage to the environment before climate change came along. So people like me, we're just getting on board now, but we have to understand the history of the people who have been concerned about this for decades, and we need to learn from them, especially how to be activists.
Yeah, we have to incorporate that into education, so that children understand the environment that they are in and the environment they're going to inherit, if I may. Okay, which is really it's really just an amazing thing. And I want to talk to you about something 1,000 years ago when I was a teacher. Okay, me and the other four. I was a history teacher. We had science, math, and English. We all got together. We created a special curriculum on endangered species, and this is back in the 70s, early 70s. Okay, they gave us a block of 4 sections, and we had those kids any way we wanted them, the 4 teachers, for a block of 4 hours a day. Okay, and the kids loved it because they love animals, and we were able to do that. So I did it. I did endangered species from a social point of view, science, obviously, math, used endangered species to teach mathematics. And English, of course, they did some reading and writing on it. And it worked great. Yeah. And what you said, it did. The kids loved it. The teachers loved it, too. Me and the 3 other guys, we loved it. Okay? It was just a lot of fun. We had our own thing to do. And, of course, I don't know how many people do it. But this thing these days, climate change, and you said this better than I ever could, is an interdisciplinary thing, okay? It's not science, it's not math, it's everything, okay? And it's affecting everything. And talk to me about your book. You are a science educator, but how are you, when you talk about this and show your book to your fellow educators who teach future history teachers, future math teachers, etc., how do they look at what you're doing? Because I think it's very important we make this interdisciplinary, and I think it's engaging for the teachers and engaging for the kids. Mark.
Oh yeah. Every think tank that's writing about educational policy and transformation right now in the United States and elsewhere in the world, they're all talking about the same things. Social-emotional learning, a holistic approach to education, and interdisciplinary curriculum. They're all advising that we go in those directions. And
exactly.
So interdisciplinary is hugely important. The way we've divided up subjects in our schools is kind of artificial. Science doesn't exist without math, and social studies doesn't exist without narratives from language arts, for example. And
without science, it's engineering social studies. It's ridiculous. It's crazy to silo them. It's nuts. Never understood it.
So when kids see that their teachers are collaborating together and helping the kids see how interwoven social studies is with language arts and math and science, and they're all working on a complex problem or question together for a sustained period of time, that's authentic work. It's problem solving like adults do out in the world.
Right.
And you use every tool. You got to think of those different disciplines as different tools, intellectual tools to get answers and get work done. And so kids feel like, I've got some mastery over these different disciplines.
Yeah, we just got to do this. I mean, it's just Boy, I mean, if we don't do something about it soon, we're really going to pay the price. We already are paying the price, for goodness sakes. And this is the way education has to really change. And what you were saying a few minutes ago about how poverty affects the environment. I was thinking, I just read something about it. In India, they put that Union Carbide plant back in the 70s in the worst part of the country, and of course the place exploded one day. Okay,
yeah.
And killed all those thousands of people. Okay, poisoned to death. Okay, by this Union Carbide plant. 40, 50 years ago, whatever that was, and not on that level, but in certain levels. Okay, it affects the minority groups here. All right, and my question is, we're talking about eco grief. We're talking about the climate anxiety, but. With the SEL and all that, and all the already the mental challenges in schools today, what grades do you see this coming into? Okay, how do you see it working, and how do you set up for such a program to make sure that you're okay, that the kids are okay?
Well, I should tell you that nobody has got a well-researched, super well-grounded regimen for talking to kids about their emotions. There is really good work being done, but I can tell your listeners that we're at the beginning of trying to figure this out. So here's what we do know. Kids, the majority of kids in your classroom will have some anxiety about the future. They might not talk about it, but that should not fool you as a teacher. You really have to begin a conversation with them if you plan on teaching a unit on climate change, which is like 3 to 6 weeks of connected lessons, or maybe, like some of my colleagues in Los Angeles that I'm working with, they're going to teach an entire year's course focusing on climate change, solutions, resilience. They got a whole course on it. But whether it's a unit you're teaching or a full year, you've got to have either one conversation, that's the minimum, about what emotions they feel, or you can have a series of conversations about your emotions. And it helps to have kids name their emotions. I was skeptical about this research finding at first, but it seems to be pretty uniform. When you say climate anxiety, that is not one emotion. That's a mix of different emotions.
Oh,
and it
point.
Can be confusing.
Good point.
So it can be things ranging from despair to hopelessness to anger and everything in between those. It's just naming specifically the emotions you're feeling, what's in that stew that we call eco-anxiety, for example, just by itself that is helpful for kids. And we also know from research that the anxiety itself is not the challenge for teachers. It's how do you help kids cope with their anxiety?
Right.
And so we don't have time on our show today to talk about those specific strategies, but there are some on the companion website to the book. And so teachers can look up about how to talk to kids about their climate emotions and find out a bit more.
Okay, and you gave me the climate change. I'll put it up here. Climate-change-educator.org, right? Climate-change. Yeah. Okay, that'll be up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, this is really important. What grades are you looking at? I mean, you were a science teacher. Maybe you were. Yeah. What grades are you looking at? When is a kid too young to learn this?
Yeah, that is really important. And a lot of people doing this research are developmental psychologists, so they're very tuned into when are kids too young to have these conversations. And so, I think it's somewhere between 7 years old and younger than that. You do have to be careful. Kids cannot quite yet comprehend the idea of worry about the future because of something as abstract as a climate. Once you get past those very early elementary years, kids become aware quite readily of what's going on. And then you can engage with them in particular age-appropriate ways. And then when kids get to be young adults, they get into high school, there's a slightly different set of conversations you can have with them. And you can grow into conversations about not just coping with anxiety, but taking up action, choosing solutions for your community, studying those solutions, maybe putting some of those solutions into practice, that activism becomes part of the child's repertoire as soon as they get into middle school. They should start thinking that way, that I can make a change, especially if I do it on a collective level with my peers, with my school, with my community.
And I have to, I assume you have talked about this with, with curriculum directors, that sort of thing. You know, you put together an important book here. What is their reaction when they see what you're trying to accomplish here?
Well, nearly
let me put it in a bit. One of the reasons I'm asking that is because whether we like it or not, K-12 education is pretty much a bureaucracy. Okay, it really is.
Yeah.
To change a bureaucracy, just read Franz Kafka if you want to change that. Okay, so we have to figure out a game plan. Okay, to do that. And I'm just curious, where do they see when you talk to them? And I know you do. You research this pretty well. What's their reaction?
Well, there was an interesting poll done just last year about administrators responding to the question about whether climate change gets taught in their schools.
Oh,
and way more administrators said, oh, yes, we're talking about climate change. Way more said that, indicated yes, than their own teachers did. Sometimes there was a 20% difference in between what administrators perceived was being taught and what actually was being taught. So I'll start with that. But parents, by and large, parents want their kids to understand climate change. And sometimes there are ideological differences. Some parents may not want their kids to know about climate change. A lot of
What's going on here? Wow, I don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, Mark just dropped. I don't know what's going on today. All right, I dropped a few minutes ago, and then Mark just did. So I guess I'm going to have to end the show. We're almost done anyway, to tell you the truth. But I didn't give him a chance to finish his statement, for goodness sakes. I'll get him back on here. We'll continue this conversation. Let's see if he calls in the next few minutes. This is really interesting, and I'm telling you, I had good luck with interdisciplinary approach, okay, to this kind of information. And some of the other teachers didn't like it that we were doing this, but we did it. And we got national attention back in those days for setting up an interdisciplinary program that talked back in those days about endangered species. Here's Mark, okay? Let's see if we can get him back on here. It works. Mark, I don't know. All of a sudden you dropped off. The tech gods are against us today. Please continue your thought.
We're too far apart, Larry. You're in Maine, and I'm in
I don't know what it is. I'm going to blame Illinois. It's kind of in the middle, okay? And we'll go from there. I don't know what they're doing out there. Okay? Yeah. Please continue. I apologize. I was asking you how the school districts, the administrators, et cetera, are viewing this, and I love the fact that the teachers are saying 20% different from what the administrators are saying, which is, what can I tell you?
Yeah.
You know, perception.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Please continue your thought. Thanks for calling back in. Yeah.
Okay. Parents do want their kids, really, by and large, to learn about climate change. They may not want a lot of ideological talk by teachers, but even the most conservative parents do want their kids to understand the basic science. And so teachers can feel pretty comfortable in most parts of the country. Now, there are exceptions. There are pockets in the country. There are states, as we know, that are highly conservative, and states where talk about climate change is virtually banned from classrooms. Nonetheless, teachers are on the vanguard. They're actually doing the teaching, even in those states where it may not appear in the standards. So, parents want this to happen. Teachers, by and large, want it to happen. Teachers will really push back.
They do, without question.
Yeah,
but
and if you
most
get
parents
a couple
do too.
I was going to say, if you get a couple extreme people on your school board, parents will push back against the school board about what gets taught.
Good. And again, a lot of these parents are, and it gets down to it's kind of this whole thing with Ron DeSantis. Oh, I don't want kids to feel guilty. So therefore, we're not going to teach black history in the way it should be taught, okay? Because people might feel guilty. That's okay if you feel guilty. That's something you have to work through if something's going on, okay? Nobody's blaming anybody. Nobody today is responsible for all this, okay? But we have to change it, okay? And that's what we have to make the change. You can't move full you can't go to finish the journey unless you know where you've been, okay?
Yes,
it's that simple.
There's no coincidence that places like some places do not want you to learn about black history, and the same places do not want you to learn about evolution. They don't want you to learn about the uncomfortable things that we currently know about climate change. It's not a coincidence that the same places are banning all of those things that they feel are uncomfortable truths. They're also banning local books about those things.
Well, what I always like to say is nobody ever had the opportunity to ask the ostrich when he put his head in the sand if that worked as the lion was eating him. Okay? Putting your head in the sand. Putting your head in the sand. It's not going to help. And my favorite line about all this, okay, was from Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist. When he was asked, what about people who don't like climate change? He looked, he said, nature doesn't care. It's happening whether you believe it or not. It's happening. So you better get on the stick and think about it, because it's happening anyway. Nature doesn't care, okay? And we got to do something about it because I don't know if you know this, Mark, but we don't have any other planets to go to in the next couple of years. This is it.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me about that, Larry.
Yeah, no problem. I'm sorry to give you climate anxiety at the end of the show. Okay, but we don't have another planet to go to. Yeah. So what you're doing is great, and you said they're working on it in L.A.
Oh, can you say that again, Larry?
Taking your book again, Teaching Climate Change. Okay, fostering understanding, resilience, and commitment to justice. So, are you taking this? Where are they? Are they putting it into effect in the districts? You mentioned L.A. before.
Oh yeah, I've been working with. See, when I started writing the book, I said, I cannot write this book sitting in my office at home. I have to get out into classrooms. And so the book features a 3rd grade classroom, a 7th grade classroom, and a 10th grade classroom. And I got access to the classrooms and in some cases got a lot of access to what the kids were producing, what they were saying.
Oh, great.
And so that was wonderful. So I had to be in classrooms
Good man.
to do this. And so the LA work is, they're teachers, two teachers working together to develop and teach a whole year's curriculum around climate change topics. But I should say, whenever you teach about climate change, you also have to teach about solutions and regeneration and resilience. That fosters a sense of hope. So that's what these LA teachers are bringing to their curriculum, as well as the hard truths about climate change itself.
I think it's. I just think it's so important what you're doing, Mark. That's why I wanted to bring you on today. And I wish you good luck with the book. It's Harvard Education Press. You went to the top there. That's great, man. Teaching Climate Change. Mark, that's great, man. I'll tell you. Mark WINDSCHITL.
Well, thank you, Larry.
Okay. Well, it's terrific. And it's important. I hope you put your head on the pillow every night and take a good night's sleep, because what you're doing is really important, okay? And get your colleagues in all those other departments outside of science teaching to understand that this is an interdisciplinary thing, okay? This is the kind of thing that engages kids and engages teachers, okay? Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
You're a good man.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, everybody, that's Mark WINDSCHITL, okay, and this is cool stuff, and it's important. Fostering understanding, resilience, and a commitment to justice, the book's Teaching Climate Change, and I will add the website to the companion, I couldn't think of the word, the companion website to the description in just a few minutes. I'm Larry Jacobs. This is Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio. Thanks for listening.